It's time to find out
What Shane
said with Shane Manila.
What's good, world? Welcome back to another Shane Says. Yes, I'm still pumping these out until Ray or J Rich stops me. Anywho, this week, I'm going to make it really quick, like I promise every week. This week's episode is called Rescuing Refuse for Reuse in 2025. I like alliteration, so I'm proud of myself. So I was going to force that line into this podcast, videocast, YouTube show, no matter what. What do I mean by that? What do I mean is, what players can we buy right now that'll be usable next year? And not players like A.J. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, not players of that ilk, right? I'm talking about lower valued, lower players with lower cost that we could trade for today that possibly could have returning value again next year for the cost of third-round rookie picks, fourth-round rookie picks. Maybe you give up a second-rounder and get back a player and a third. So to illustrate the point, I wanted to point out a specific player from last year that actually would hit that note or hit that mark or illustrates what I'm talking about. Chuba Hubbard last year, 2023. Last year, this time, you could have you could have traded for him using third-round rookie picks, fourth-round rookie picks. I know this because I went on Dynasty Daddy and looked up the trade database and looked up the month of November because that's about what we're about to be in. I saw multiple trades, a lot of trades where it was just a third for Hubbard, a fourth for Hubbard, some fifths. I don't know why you'd have a 5-round rookie draft. I hate that, but that's just me. Point being, I saw a lot of trades for that. So if you did that, let's say this point last year, you did it around this time last year, what did Chuba give you, right? From this point on to the end of the year, it was 9 weeks. He gave you 5 top 24 weeks. He was running back 2 or better in 5 of those weeks, including 2 top 11 weeks. So a lot of people that traded for Chuba last year probably thought, well, that's all I'm going to get. Fine. That's a little bit of an asset for last year. But you know what? This year, he's still continuing because John Brooks isn't back to give you value. He's had 6 of his 8 weeks. He's been a top 24 running back. 3 of those weeks, he's finished as the RB8 or better. Now, 6 weeks is a top 24 back, or I should say 3 weeks is an RB2. That's absolutely not like earth shattering by any means. But to have 3 weeks as an RB8 or better when you gave up a third or a fourth or a third and a fourth for Chuba Hubbard last year is a steal. So what players right now can you get at roughly the same cost? Again, using Dynasty Daddy, I looked it up, typed some names in the database to make sure that I wasn't making things up. So what are some of the players that you could trade for right now using thirds, fourths, or again, maybe you give up a second and get the player back and a third? First up, famous Jameis Winston. Per Dwayne McFarland's utilization report on Fantasy Life, Winston, for his career, has averaged 277 yards in games with at least 90% of the snaps. 277 yards. Pretty good. Over the past 3 seasons, this is what I just looked up. Over the past 3 seasons, he's had 6 games where he's had 15 or more pass attempts. He's finished as the QB1 twice, as a QB1 twice, and he's finished as a QB2 on 3 occasions. And then one time he was a QB3. But 2 QB1 weeks. Like I said, 3. That's 3 actually. QB2 weeks. That's not bad. It's really not bad. If you listen to Scott's Dynasty portfolio this week, he talked about what could happen with Jameis, right? There's a chance he could come back to Cleveland, but there's also a chance he could sign elsewhere, right? Maybe he's a bridge quarterback somewhere, but there's a chance that he's going to be a starter again at some point next year. If not, probably not a big chance, but there is a chance that he's a starter for the Browns. I know Deshaun Watson's still under contract and all that stuff, but Jameis Winston pretty much probably will have a chance to start somewhere next year. So if you can give up a third and a fourth, you get utility out of him right now. We obviously know he's starting until the end of the season unless of injury, knock on wood. And then you get additional starts next year. Next up, I'm sticking with the Browns, man. I promise you I don't love the Browns, but it's hard to ignore what this dude has done over the last 2 weeks. Cedric Tillman. In 2 weeks without Amari Cooper on the roster, he has finished as the wide receiver 7. In week 7, he finished as the wide receiver 10 with 18.1 fantasy points. And then in week 8, which happened to correspond with Jameis's first start, I believe, he was the wide receiver 3 overall with 28.9 points per game. He had a 24% target share in both of those weeks. Over the last 2 weeks, Cedric Tillman is the wide receiver 3 overall. Again, I know it's 2 weeks. It's a small sample size. If it was a larger sample size, you probably wouldn't be able to get him on your roster for a 3rd or a 4th round draft pick. I'm just guessing. It's probably got something to do with it. It's only been 2 weeks. Now, he did not have a good rookie season. I will admit to you that. Not a real good rookie season. But it's not just the target share, obviously. You know, I work at DD, push out content for DD. One of the things we have, the Trinity tool. And if you look here on my screen, you see Cedric Tillman right there. You see him all the way to the right, right? Yes, you do. He's on the far right there, right near that. I got to look it up. It looks like it's right near the high-end wide receiver range. Not surprisingly, because he's had a lot of target volume. He's had a lot of air yards. And quite frankly, he's produced impressively so. His Trinity score over those 2 weeks is 7.35. It's stellar. It's absolutely stellar. Right behind him, David Njoku, Elijah Moore. I talked about Elijah Moore and Follow the Volume. I'm not an Elijah Moore guy. He's been through some. He's shown that he is not someone that we can count on. Cedric Tillman, less failure. Anytime there's been less failure, sure, he's only been in the league a year and a half. There's going to be less failure. I'm going to believe in that player just a little bit more. Now, speaking of the Trinity tool, you already know I'm going to have to pitch you on this. So if you have not signed up for DD yet, the DD Fantasy, I suggest you do. There's a discount going on. We can get you half off. I can get you half off first month, whether it's the GOAT tier or the All Access Plus Discord tier. I'm going to go ahead and put the code in the comments when this show comes out. So Cedric Tillman, like I said, he's another guy that I would like to get my hands on. And I've sent out many offers. I've gotten him in a couple leagues, again, using 3rds and 4ths. One league, I did have to give up a 2nd, and I got Tillman back in at a 3rd, taking some risk, right? Next up, dude, it's the returning champ. If it's not Chuba Hubbard, the returning champ is Joseph Flacco. Last year, my dude, in 6 games, he had 5 QB1 weeks in 6 games. And the only game that he wasn't a QB1, he finished as the QB13. That's pretty impressive. So this year, he has been less prolific. Okay, so he's got 3 starts, it appears. He has been a QB2 twice and a QB1 once. But over the last 2 years, we've seen you can plug Flacco into an offense, and he's going to not only make the other fantasy assets better, he's going to produce for you. Again, we're looking at this relative to cost. Do I expect to trade for Joe Flacco and have him be my QB1 next year? No, I don't even expect him to be my QB2 next year. But there is the chance that if he gets a start, or that he will get a start, depending on his situation where he's at, and if he gets in there, I'm looking at least a QB2 week, which is not bad for the price of a 3rd round draft pick, which is what he's gone for in many leagues. Some leagues he's gone for multiple 3rds. Cool. The hit rate on 3rd round rookie picks, not great. Good assets, though, 3rd round picks, because you can do things like buy spot starts. You can buy players, you can acquire players like Joe Flacco, etc. Okay, last player on here. This dude is kind of a personal favorite of mine, and he has been for some time. That's going to be Jacobi Meyers. Okay, Jacobi Meyers has played 6 games this year. Jacobi Meyers has exceeded a 22% target share in 4 of those games. 4 of those games. That's not bad. One of those weeks, my dude went absolutely insane. My dude had a 42% target share. If you go ahead and look at his Trinity score, you can see here's Jacobi. This is his weekly scores 1 through 8. He obviously hasn't played all 8 games because of injuries, but you can see he's above the regression line right there, those couple weeks, right? He's right near the regression line these weeks. Jacobi Meyers is a player that, well, like I said, I'm a fan of. Exceeded 24% in 4 of 6 games. He's finished as a wide receiver 2 in 3 weeks. And that includes, right? I'm not just talking about wide receiver 23, 24. He was a wide receiver 17, and he's been the wide receiver 18. He's had those finishes. So a wide receiver 17 and a wide receiver 18 week under his belt. If you look at his Trinity score on the season, Jacobi Meyers is at 6.92 on the Trinity score, right above that low end wide receiver 1. Now, should you expect wide receiver 1 weeks from Jacobi Meyers? That probably would be asking for too much. But as I've already shown, he's got 3 wide receiver 2 weeks in 6 weeks played. So 50% of the time, he's giving you a wide receiver 2 week, which is pretty good considering his price. He's a guy that if I can get for multiple thirds, I'm doing it. A third and a fourth, cool. And I might, this is the type of dude, him specifically, as opposed to Flacco and Winston. I'm not really feeling giving up a second for them. But for Tillman, who I talked about earlier, I'm kind of bullish on him. But for Tillman and for Jacobi Meyers, I could be convinced that I'm going to give up a second for them. Now, again, if I have to give up a second for Tillman or Meyers, I am going to ask for a third back, just because for my pride, it makes me feel like I didn't give up too much. But I would probably accept a fourth. So if someone were to offer me Tillman and a fourth for a second rounder, I'm going to do it. I'm that bullish on him. Same for Jacobi Meyers. So again, that's just some players. You can go through the Trinity score on the website, look up some players that have popped over the last few weeks. See if there are players that aren't big names, don't have a ton of trade value that you can get for thirds and fourths. You go on Dynasty Daddy, look them up, plug their name in, and see if there's being trades made for them and what those trades entail. So again, those players for me, it's Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco, Cedric Tillman, and Jacobi Meyers. So that's it. Appreciate everybody watching. In the comments, let me know what players that you're willing to take a shot on this year that you think will carry over or have a good chance to give you production next year too for the cost of a third or a fourth or the expensive ones like Tillman and Meyers. All right. Appreciate y'all.